Normal is a myth, and it always was. I've been thinking a lot about the idea of normal in the last few days and weeks, and it's something that has been popping up a lot. People are saying, I just can't wait until we get back to normal, or preparing for the new normal. But y'all, normal never really existed. Last fall, back before this whole thing started, I was working on a script for a potential TEDx talk, and some of this content I've developed into my theatrical keynote / one-person show, Towards Together. And a lot of it was about normal and these ideas that we have about normal and what that word means. So since most in-person events and conferences and TEDx talks have been postponed for the foreseeable future, I figured, why not just share some of the ideas that I have? So part of what got me thinking about normal is this idea of a normal family, right? Like, do you have a normal family? Does anybody you know have a normal family? And let me explain what I mean by that. So everybody in your family is completely normal. So there's no dysfunction or mental illness or addiction. And whenever you all get together, everybody gets along 100%. Yeah. See, we have this ridiculous idea that normal exists as one singular definition. Newsflash, it doesn't. And the whole reason that we judge other people who are different than us as weird or abnormal is because we have that ridiculous idea that normal exists as one true North Star. But each one of us have a set of lived experiences that shape our idea of what normal means. What's normal for somebody who grew up in New York City is going to be totally different than somebody who grew up in Tokyo, Japan, or a small town in rural Texas. All sorts of things shape our individual definitions and experiences of what normal means. Whether we grew up rich or poor or middle class, the opinions and the values of the parents and families that raised us, whether we had parents or families to raise us at all. How might we be more curious about trying to understand somebody else's definition of normal instead of judging their lives by our own version of normal? Normal is a spectrum, and so are most aspects of life. But instead, we want everything to be this or that, yes or no, right or wrong. We're uncomfortable swimming in the uncertainty. And this discomfort, this disconnect, this avoidance of uncertainty, it's pushing us apart. It's causing us to stay apart instead of moving towards together. And y'all, together is the only way that we're gonna get through this. We were already at a critical point in human history. Climate change, gun violence, and mass shootings as the new normal, skyrocketing debt, and societies where most people, even before this current moment, didn't have access to affordable health care. Countries that are run by corporations. And if y'all didn't believe that, I hope you believe it now. Look around. The only way that we're gonna get through all of this is together. Y'all, we need as many different brains working together as possible to get us through this mess. We needed it before, and y'all better be for real. If we need it now, we need us to work together to create solutions to the world's most pressing problems, both this situation that we're in right now and things like climate change. All of these situations, we need diverse perspectives. We need diverse experiences, diverse ways of thinking in order to create innovation. That's where creativity and innovation comes from. We need to listen to those diverse perspectives, and we need to drop the judgment in order to move towards together. And here's how. Sometimes we need to shut up and just listen to other people, other perspectives, other ways of being. Sometimes those conversations are uncomfortable. Sometimes they're hard. But sometimes we have to be willing to be uncomfortable and be willing to swim in that uncertainty together. Uncertainty is definitely the moment that we're in. more than ever, probably before or maybe after this, in our lifetimes, no matter what your age is, this is a moment of uncertainty. And however you're dealing with that, whether you're trying to stay positive and optimistic, if that comes naturally to you, or if, we're eating tons of cookies and lying on the couch binge watching Netflix, it's uncertain. No judgment about how you deal with that. And I say this as somebody who, this is not my first go around. This is maybe my biggest widespread worldview crushing go around at having normal completely flipped on its head. But this is not the first time that my own version of normal has been pulled out from under me like a rug. So I live in New Orleans and I grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And you might be aware, but in August of 2005, everybody who lived in this region, our normal was turned upside down all of a sudden when Hurricane Katrina came into the Gulf of Mexico and very much destroyed much of the landscape of my childhood on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And with the ensuing federal levee failures here in New Orleans, very much changed the landscape of what this city is. And here once again, New Orleans is quickly becoming one of the epicenters of this current crisis. We had Mardi Gras happen just about a month ago, and this virus was most likely definitely in town undetected before all of that happened, and you have a lot of people from all over the country, all over the world hanging out, partying together, and that is a perfect situation for contagion to spread, unfortunately. One of the things I learned from going through Katrina and the federal levee failures is what was normal may never be normal again, but you find your way through it. It's hard. There was a lot of moments in the first few years after that situation that felt super surreal. There's a whole other session we could talk about that at a whole other time about all of those moments, but there was a lot of times that felt super surreal, and I'm having a lot of moments in the last few weeks where I'm remembering things that I'd almost forgotten about. Moments where the city was like on curfew and there was National Guard patrolling, and I can never go back to the moment that was before all of that happened. And living through those moments of figuring out what the new normal was hard. It was uncomfortable. I'm not gonna deny that. But we got through it, and we in some ways came out better and in some ways came out worse, and that's kind of the way it is. Another situation for me that just ripped my whole version of what I thought was normal apart was the summer of 2018, when I made the decision to leave my partner of 15 years, essentially a divorce. We just weren't married, so it wasn't the legal part of a divorce, but all of the other stuff. And then a couple days after I made that decision to move forward with that, I found out that my full-time salaried job was suddenly becoming a part-time contract position. And then 3 weeks later, my elderly dog died. So all within the course of a few weeks, my whole world came crumbling down. And just like with going through Katrina and the federal levee failure, it was hard and it was uncomfortable and it was painful. But slowly, I learned to rebuild, and I learned to figure out how to deal with my new normal. And I have a lot of moments similarly lately where I'm thinking about that time too. And I found myself having a ton of gratitude for that moment in time, because I feel like it prepared me personally to deal with this moment that we're all having. And hopefully I can be a resource for some of you who are struggling in this current time. But in thinking about the fact that normal doesn't exist as one singular definition, the fact that normal never existed as one single thing for everyone, it's important to remember also that this current situation is affecting different people differently because those people already had pre-existing different versions of what normal meant to them. Right? Some of us may be adapting to spending a lot of time at home alone for the first time. Some of us may be adapting to working remotely and using digital tools to work. Meanwhile, there were plenty of people who for many years have advocated for, have asked for those same tools and were denied them. Think about people with disabilities. I've heard a lot about this from the disability community, people that I follow on Instagram and Twitter and elsewhere, who have pointed out the fact that for years they have asked for these sorts of accommodations that suddenly are able to just be given out to everybody because we're in this moment where everybody has to work from home. But there's a lot of people that because of whatever situation, maybe they were parents and they needed to at least have some days to work from home and they were denied that because maybe a boss somewhere said, oh no, that we can't do that. You have to come into the office. Well, look who's laughing now because suddenly, we can all work from, well, not everybody can work from home. So this is another thing, is the fact that a lot of the people out there who can't work from home, even in this current moment, people like grocery store employees, delivery drivers, things like that. Think about the demographics of a lot of those groups. This is disproportionately affecting people, the classism that's happening right now, as well as the demographic and racial breakup of who is able to shift into working remotely and self-quarantine, self-isolate, stay at home, and also to stock up on things like food or to have more of a emergency fund. Y'all, this situation is bringing into crystal clear focus exactly how different some people's version of normal is versus other people's version of normal. And that was pre-existing. And this is just, I think, bringing it even more to light and bringing it more into focus. We are all navigating this moment together. The status quo, the old normal, I don't think we're ever going to get back to that. And I hope that we don't. I hope that we come out of this with a different mindset. I don't know if we will. I tend to try to be an optimist in many ways. At the same time, trying to be a realist. I definitely have my cynical side. I hope that our new normal puts people over profits. I hope that our new normal prioritizes community and connection over corporate interest. The old normal wasn't working, y'all. It really wasn't. We still have some of those existing issues that we're gonna have to deal with. Climate change, that didn't go away, despite all of the fake news stories about dolphins coming back into the Venice canals. I wish that was true. I do love dolphins. But I hope that this moment is going to shift our perspectives, shift our ways of being, doing, and acting so that we can adapt to the things that were already looming over our heads. Again, I live in New Orleans. I think about this stuff all the time. I have had many, many thoughts for years before this current moment about the fact that everywhere I grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and New Orleans, if I live to be 60, 70, 80, I don't think that the places that I grew up and have lived all of my life, I don't know if they'll be there. And that has already loomed over my head for the last few years, regardless of what's happening in this current moment. So the question I leave with you is, how are you gonna respond? How are you gonna redefine normal for yourself? What does your new normal look like? How do you wanna show up? How do you wanna be in this world? And what are you gonna do to change it and make it a better place for yourself, your loved ones, and everybody else? Let's move towards together, shall we? Thank you so much for listening to my TEDx talk. That's not a TEDx talk at all. Thanks for coming. I'd love to hear what you have to say, what your thoughts are about all of this in this moment. I am hosting twice weekly virtual happy hours during this current time until further notice. Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can find more information and all of the details to RSVP and sign up and join at my website, MalloryWhitfield.com/events. That'll get you to all that and all my other online virtual events and things. And hang out with me. I'm pretty much on all of the social medias, although I've definitely been trying to limit my social media time for my own mental state. So Mallory Whitfield is my name. Find me online. Let's hang out. Oh, I didn't touch my face.